Bev, welcome to VOA.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Mike.
much for taking time out to be with us.
Thank you.
Let's delve into it. You're here during a very special time for the whole world. Saturday marks Earth Day. And that is right up your alleyway as someone who's an environmental expert. Talk to me more about the importance of that day.
So, I always like to say Earth Day, every day is Earth Day. Earth Day is every day. So, we just might put a special day to really recognize it that much, but every day should be Earth Day because we have the responsibility to protect this earth that we're in. It should be some sort of awareness raising for people who are beginning to forget that the environment is so precious that we have to protect. So it should be some sort of creating awareness, creating the consciousness so people can be more environmentally friendly and more eco-conscious in their daily operations.
But while on Earth Day itself, the theme, invest in the planet.
So this, I like to say this, like we like removing so many things. We like to remove, extra weight. We like to remove every other thing. But there's one thing that we don't want to remove, and that is carbon from the atmosphere. And which in itself, if we try to remove, could be $1 billion business, sector. So I think that is an investment that we are still to even make. It's a sector that we still have to invest in, and that is investing in the earth, investing in smart solutions, green solutions, investing in brilliant ideas that can help, remove the carbon back from the atmosphere, and invest in other smart agriculture, invest in waste management schemes and all the other tree planting as well, because basically, I mean, trees, we're breathing because trees are.
Speaking of investments, year in, year out, whenever we have these climate change summits, we have our African leaders calling on rich nations to invest more because they pollute more.
Right.
What is your take on that?
Seriously, there's a spoken word video that I did one time. I always play it everywhere I go because it really hammers on, the fact that it's everyone's responsibility. Because even when we try to have these conversations in Africa about climate, it's really hard to penetrate people's hearts with this because Africa contributes less than 5% to global carbon emissions, and we're being called upon to be part of the solution, and we're like, no, we didn't mess the environment, so we are not the ones to be fixing this. So let the big polluting countries, US, China, and all of that, they should be at the forefront, and they should be at the forefront of climate finance, being able to support, because it's true that Africa contributes less, but then we're already seeing and facing and living in the consequences because emissions elsewhere do not respect country boundaries. They just, the consequences are already there.
Now, you mentioned youth earlier on. If we look at the continent-wide, the youth are battling a barrage of challenges, and among them is unemployment.
Right.
For a young person who is really focused on, I want to better my life, I want to get a job and better my family,
Right.
why should they care about climate change?
Thank you. That question is so crucial and so important. I hear it a lot of times, and every time I hear the question, I'm like, yes, this is it. So one of the reasons why climate messages don't go down easily is because people have different concerns, more pressing and urgent concerns. Like, I want to wake up, I'm looking for what to eat, I'm trying to maybe get my kids to school. That's like, I need to get that done now and not be thinking of climate change. Like, people have other worries, and young people have unemployment worries. Like, I'm leaving, I'm graduating, where am I going next? That should be more of my concern than climate change. So usually, how I try to get young people to care, about this, at the same time solving those other problems, is to be able to make them see the climate crisis as an opportunity. Think of it not as a climate crisis, but as a climate opportunity where we can explore the areas where innovation can come in and create green jobs. That's why my organization is trying to launch what is called the Green Pitch Competition, where we would have young people pitch green business ideas, some sort of the Shark Tank idea, but focus on green entrepreneurs. So it would not just be ideas on paper, it would be ideas with a prototype, with a proof of concept that can be scaled as a business. You know, you're solving an environmental problem and at the same time putting food on your table, so that, because people argue that Africa is still struggling to fight poverty. We haven't got to the point of being able to, you know, fight climate change. So that's a very crucial point. How do we get young people to really care about climate when they have other pressing issues like that? So in our solution, in our approach to this, we try to solve those other concerns while solving this one, so that they now see, okay, so I can, you know, come up with a way in which we can recycle our waste, and that could be a machine that I can sell. You know, I'm cleaning up the environment and at the same time making some money.
Now tell me more about your organization.
Oh, yeah. Eco Game Changers. So Eco Game Changers is a youth-led movement that I founded together with Patun Dango. She's an environmental engineer who studied Newcastle University in the UK. And Game Changers really primarily exists to champion the fight against climate change in Cameroon locally. We're trying to draw from think globally, but then act locally to be able to see how we can get Cameroon to a greener and more secular economy. Practical example of this hospital that committed. So when we approached them, they were not very much conscious of how they can, bring in their quota to this fight, even as a hospital. But then it's been impressive that since we approached them, they set up an environmental committee in the hospital. Those were part of their commitments, and it was so impressive to see they already set up an environmental committee. They're already trying to segregate their waste. That's infectious, non-infectious, plastic waste, and they are almost entirely powered by solar energy during the day. So like trying to reduce use of energy. So that's really impressive, and we try to follow up on them from time to time to see that they're actually keeping those commitments. And that's one thing that we do. We also do recycling. Recycling textile waste into flower pots, recycling waste tires into furniture, and also recycling organic waste into compost, where we also train women who are farmers to do that, to be able to improve their crop yields. Yes.
This guy over here. You have an amazing book.
Okay.
That's educating the youth on climate change.
Right.
Talk to me about this book.
Yeah, so this is like one of the most exciting things I've done recently, because I had this burning desire to, how do I communicate climate messages in ways that people understand, because climate change is really a complex thing to think about. Like, how do I explain this to people? How do I, especially the younger generation, how do I get them understand what we're really up against and what they can do even as young people? So this idea came to mind. I'm a poet. I do a lot of spoken word poetry, and I was like, why not channel that energy, of poetry and all of that to this advocacy for environmental awareness. So this idea came up, and I shared with my friend Nyanga Sandy. So she's a co-author, and she's a poet as well, and she's a creative, literary creative, and we said, why not? So we decided to write the poems that would cut across pollution, waste management, renewable energy, regenerative agriculture, just different things, just touching on the problems, and also, zeroing in on the solutions. What can we do as individuals, as organizations, as corporate institutions, and even as government, because we need all hands on deck. So that's how this book came about, and it took us quite a few months to put the poems together. There are about 50 something poems in there, and what's really fascinating for me about it is some poems have like graphic representations beside them for those who cannot really understand, because poetry is a language of its own. Some person may read and be like, okay, but then when they see the graphic representation around it, it can make more sense. And this way it's also reader friendly for those in secondary and primary level, and this can go a long way even when I'm not yet here, because I always believe that I'm not supposed to be building an organization because I'm young. I should be building an organization that will be young even when I'm old, and will keep running even when I'm not there, and the impact will keep through. So The Last Garden of Eden is a book that I hope that can get to the hands of every young person in Cameroon, and why not out of Cameroon, so they can see climate simplified in a way that we see it around us. It's already here, and we have to do something about it.
The Lost Garden of Eden. Why this name?
Wow, I almost saw that question coming. I know. So, the inspiration for this name actually came from Gabon, because Gabon recently became certified as a carbon credit economy due to their long history of forest conservation, the Congo Basin. And I'm like, this forest could actually be our last Garden of Eden because like all the other forests are going down. Deforestation is alarming, and Gabon, it seems like the last one standing, with a long history of forest conservation. Now they're a carbon credit economy, and they're actually capturing more carbon than they're releasing with their forests. And I'm like, God, this shouldn't be the last one. We should create more gardens. And the Eden, I mean, it was just also for the creativity and just also to make it sound appealing. Last Garden of Eden. Yeah, but then the inspiration came from thinking about Gabon and their journey to forest conservation, and how that might just be our last if we don't take action to, preserve more of our forests.
Now, as we wrap up, I want to rope it back to, I guess, the topic of the day, which is Earth Day.
Right.
Among the most affected groups typically is women and youth. What can we do to ensure that those groups are now more protected, for lack of a better word?
Youths and women, youths and women are usually the most vulnerable to the consequences of all of these things that we talk about. And I mean, like in Cameroon recently, we've seen landslides, we've seen floods, and it's always women who are like at the forefront trying to keep the household safe and trying to do that. I was really just thinking of water scarcity and gender in Cameroon, and thinking of how women in Africa, statistics show like we spend about 40 billion hours a year fetching water, like going all the way, trekking all the distances. If you bring those number of hours in the US or elsewhere, the young women will be in school learning or reading or doing something more productive. So I think that they should be involved in these conversations. They should be involved. They should be on those tables where our future is discussed, where because we still have a lot of, gender issues where women are like, no, you're not part of this conversation, or you still see very just dotted women and on those conversation tables. So I feel like more women should be drawn in, because women mostly like hold the household, and if they can be aware, they can transfer that awareness to their children, and the children, eventually the household is informed and appropriately aware of the situations. And young people, they are the future. I mean, some young people that I talk to, they're like, when the older people say, the future is in your hands, young people, and they're like, really? So it's and then the old people are like, it's your responsibility to make the world a better place. And like, you mess it up and you're asking us
to fix it.
to fix it. Are you serious right now? So you're going to fix your mess.
Right.
But then it's like young people, whether they fix it or not, it's going to be on us. We're going to be the ones around here. They might die of something else, but we might die of climate change. So I encourage young people to try to impose themselves on those, because they will not just be brought into the conversations. They have to find a way to push themselves into those rooms and make their voices heard.
Well, Beverly, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. We really appreciate you. This was a really great conversation.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.